JB here from Caffeinated World, following up my previous video with the Xirkaali with a comparison to Cathay models. Now, I've only built 3 Cathay models, but I think that's what people care about, is what do the Jade Warriors look like compared to some of the Xirkaali models in the range? Whether you're interested in adding some interesting stuff to your Cathay army, or you want to go the other way around and you want to add some Cathay models to your Xirkaali army. Or, if like me, you want to go into Kingdoms of Men for your Cathay army and also have a Xirkaali army on the side. So your cake and eat it too, as it were. More on that later, but let's get straight to the crux of what everyone wants to know. What do these models look like compared to each other? So, I have my first example here, and that is a Jade Warrior Champion. Standard height. He hasn't got the helmet with the giant tuft, but he does have a nice top knot. But yeah, big chunky fella, because he's in full armor. He's as armored as a ancient Chinese warrior really could be. Lots of detail. I've kind of forgotten what it's like to build Games Workshop kits, and while the detail is exquisite, this guy is like 10 pieces, and that's too much. That's too many pieces. And I think you have to add these satchels and things because there's kind of gaps in where there's just not much detail going on, so it needs to cover it. But now I've got to paint that. That's kind of annoying, but overall, does look fantastic. So this is a Jade Warrior. Now let's compare that to the only humans in the Xirkaali army, because the Xirkaali army is actually a conglomerate. It's an empire ruled by the Xirkaali Hemi-Scions themselves, the Kaali, which are the dogmen. So here's an example of the dogmen. So this is a witch hunter, so he's a character, so he's on his own cool base. So he's the witch hunter, who's one of my favorite models because of that epic face. I mean, look at that. He will not take any shit. You know, he is like the master from Kill Bill, with a long, not scrawny, it's kind of elegant, but it is thin, but he's got that long beard, and he looks like he won't tolerate anything, any disobedience. And he has a very cool cloak. Definitely cool cloak. Anyway, so what about this guy? He's pretty big. He's kind of almost ogre-sized, slightly smaller than an ogre. Well, next to him, our little Cathay Warrior comes up to about his shoulders, if that. Maybe just kind of the chest. So, quite diminutive in comparison to a Xirkaali hero. But what about Xirkaali humans? So, I have built 10 of these so far, almost done. These are the Yan Warrior Monks. Pretty cool. They just kind of got a simple getup, you know, kind of like the Shaolin monk look. Robes, kind of lots of bludgeon weapons. Reasonably cool faces. A lot of it reminds me of the 36 Chambers of Shaolin, that movie, is it George? Oh, I can't remember the actor. That's very bad, I'm sorry. He's fantastic, though. He's still alive as well, and still looks reasonably fit. But yeah, reminds me of the 36 Chambers of Shaolin. And so that's what these guys have all got, some cool weapons. It's a nice variety. You've got the various bludgeons. You've got a version of the monk spade, you know, which is this bladed weapon, which can also, you know, be used to dig graves. Very helpful. So these guys, they're pretty slight, but then they're completely unarmored, right? They've got no armor, no helmets, no nothing. They're just wearing these robes. And they're going to be rather scrawny because that's the monastic lifestyle for you. You know, you're not much bulking when you're a monk. So let's take a monk and put him alongside a Jade Warrior. How off is this? Let's try and get them nice and level. So in terms of height, like to the top of the head, almost the same. And, you know, granted, this Yan Warrior monk is kind of not crouching, but he's got his legs bent while the Jade Warrior is standing completely upright. Now, obviously, the Jade Warrior is way more chunky. That's probably because he's in full battle armor, but that's also kind of the heroic scale of Games Workshop. Like, it really is big. It's a big scale. It allows you to have big details, and, you know, the face is much more easily, I guess you can see all the features much easier here. But really, they don't look that off. You know, monks are supposed to be, I wouldn't say scrawny, but lean. And they're not in armor. So if you needed some unit of monks, you can't go too wrong with the Yan Warrior Monks. How you want to use them in the Cathay army? Well, in the current army list for Cathay, there is Well, I guess you could use them in the is that supplement book where you can have empire models, and so these guys could be some form of empire models. They can also have chakrams, which are these throwing kind of bladed discs. I'm not going to use them because I don't know how you're shooting, but you can have them with throwing bladed discs, and so therefore they could be various kinds of empire mercenary units that can actually just be warrior monks for your Cathay. So there you go. But I also know that the Cathay is getting an update where they're going to get some new models, which I'm very excited about, because I will get that as well, because it's got a whole bunch of like peasant levy units, guys with bows, because we don't have any range units in Cathay, guys with bows, guys with cannons, like hand cannons and stuff like that, so very excited. So here's the musician. Just look at that. Straps and all, big drum, very cool. So, that's the comparison there, but what about to a standard Xirkaali warrior? So, one moment. Here's an epic dude with one of my favorite weapons, the halberd, very akin to those used in the Three Kingdoms period, or at least described in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I don't know if they actually used it in the Three Kingdoms, but probably. But yeah, here's a Xirkaali warrior. How does he compare to the original Witch Hunter? So the Witch Hunter is a very cool model. So, slightly smaller, ever so slightly. And then compared to there we go. So up to shoulder height here with the Cathay guys. So the Xirkaali models, though, do have that Asian look element to them, but a mix with also kind of Asian steppe, Samarkand, those kinds of empires that all fell to the Mongols, which the Mongols kind of absorbed a lot of as well. So anyway, let's not get into history too much, but what these could be in your Cathay army, I don't know. I don't know what you want to use them as, but I know I'll be using these as Xirkaali. So really now we're going to go into my hobby update, which is what projects will I plan for 2026? Well, one of them is to make the Xirkaali army, of course. So I'm building this battalion, and I'll build everything in that giant box because I like all those different options. War engines, I'm not sure about how to use. In terms of army building with war engines is actually quite difficult because it doesn't encourage you to really use them, so I'll have to figure that balance out. But definitely Xirkaali, and I've already started doing the multi-basing for it. So the main thing actually, because I'm going to do a Kingdoms of Men Cathay, which is going to be kind of Chinese East Asian, and I'm going to be doing Xirkaali, which is kind of East Asian, less so Chinese, but East Asian for sure. I want them to have a similar basing style so that some units can be used in other armies, such as the Yan warrior monks could be fanatics in the Kingdoms of Men, or they could be militia men. There's actually units that are kind of interchangeable. The Xirkaali can't be anything else, but maybe the Lion Snarl Cavalry could be Beast Cav. There's things that could translate between the two. So, I've decided to make the basing scheme. This will be for both armies. And so what I've got here, this is actually the bases that they come with. So these are those plastic bases. See, Mantic plastic bases. I've glued them. So this is a regiment, forevermore. It's going to be a regiment of the Spear Wardens, which are the guys with the long weapons. So they're fantastic. So I'm going to have at least 2 regiments of those built here. So I've actually made the other one. And so, classic Kings of War multi-basing. Going with what is the Zhongjia Mountains. I know my tones were completely off, so I mispronounced that. But the Zhongjia Mountains are the same mountains that are used in Avatar. The very first Avatar movie by James Cameron in 2009, he used the Zhongjia Mountains for the fights. And also they inspired one of the fights in Kung Fu Panda, where they're fighting amongst these giant kind of mountain peaks that just jut up like these crags of rock. And so I'm making my entire basing scheme using these kinds of crags of rock. These are just made from foam and then sealed with PVA glue and got some putty and stuff like here. But the main thing is I've got something to hold when I want to move the unit. Move the unit. Also, it looks really cool. It's not going to look like this. It's going to get spray painted and coloured. And they're going to look like the Zhongjia. I'll show the mountains pictures throughout this video. So there's going to be greenery on this. And you can imagine all the unit on this. So our Spear Warden, for instance, up the camera. Something like that, Moving along. So that's this. That's the basing scheme. For smaller units, it doesn't really make so much sense. So this is going to be for like my Planestalkers. When you have when I want to have a troop of planeswalkers, I can't have like a whole mountain peak here, so just going for a little bit of mountain-ish. But then for the Yan, so this is my first Yan base. Looks pretty good. So yeah, I just stack these on top of each other, a few layers, and then just whittle it away like I'm some kind of special craftsman, but unlike craftsman, it doesn't matter too much how this looks, as long as I kind of evoke that rocky structure. So I'm trying to do like lines and indentations to give it that kind of layers of rock feel, because that's what they are. They're just layers of rock that have eroded over time to make these very unique looking juts, like very tall pieces of rock, like skyscrapers essentially, before skyscrapers could ever exist. So that is the basing scheme, not only for the Xirkaali, but also the Kingdoms of Men. But why am I doing Kingdoms of Men? Well, it was mostly because I have this Cathay army, and like I bought this box, but I never really got around to using it. So these Cathay models, very beautiful, fantastic. You know, we're getting ancient China, mythological China. You know, there's these amazing vibes, and I just got the box straight away because it's the first plastic Chinese models that's ever been around. Wargames Atlantic have teased some for at least the last 3 years, 4 years. Never got around to doing it still. So hopefully we'll see them one day, because they were going to do a Warring States period kit, which might even include some chariots, because Cathay has no chariots yet. But yeah, I was just not getting around to making them for the old world. I bought these going, this is going to be my old world army, right? Because I like Warhammer Fantasy. I played it back in the day. I didn't play it very well, and I can't say I enjoyed all the games I had. But I was like, yeah, the nostalgia got me, but I don't want to use my old Orcs and Goblins models, so I sold them and got some Cathay models. But it's these then, with that in mind, using them just for that, and I was going to individually base them, I just couldn't bring myself to actually start the army. They sat there languishing for 8 months, never touched them, never touched the box, until I came to the decision right at the start of this year that, stuff it, I'm going to use them to make Kingdoms of Men, because I looked at the Kingdoms of Men list that got released with 4th edition. I wasn't sure if the 4th edition was going to have Kingdoms of Men, but once it did, I looked, I saw all the units, and I saw, oh, yeah, Foot Guard can be Jade Warriors, Fanatics can be the Monks, I have a Baron, so that it'll unlock the Foot Guard as core, so then I can use them as core units. Why not? Let's get into it. So, with that, I was, that's when the spark happens. That's when you just get inspired, and then you're suddenly able to just put together a whole army. And that's what got me inspired to open the box. Which is just as well, because these models, bloody complicated, jeez. But, with that said, I plan on building the whole box here, the Grand Cathay Battalion, to make lots of Foot Guard. We've also got some Knights and got some Cannons. And then the new box will come out for the Cathay. That's the one that's been shown off by Games Workshop and will be released at some date. They don't really say when. But when eventually it does get released, I'll get that. And that's got a whole bunch of peasants with bows and halberds, spears and stuff, and some ranged units. So yeah, with all of that together, I pretty much can make a full, 2,300 point Kingdoms of Men army. I've got the balloon as well. I bought the balloon ages ago. So that can be a battle shrine. So I can make a cool army of that, and I'll have a cool army of Xirkaali. They'll have shared basing where it all blends together, and so I can then mix and match some units as I need, which will also be really fun. So that's my hobby plan for 2026. I'm also doing some stuff with Riftforged Orcs, but I think I'll make a different video for that because it's not really in with this, and that's more to do with some rebasing, redoing the bases. So I'll follow it up with another video of that. But hopefully you've now seen the different sizes of units. I was going to also build a Knight, one of the Jade Lancers, I think they're called. But then I looked at the instructions of the Jade Lancers, and I thought, no, I don't really feel like that today. It's really hot in here. So let's take a look. Take a look at these instructions. Let's go. I want to make one horse. Here. That's too many steps. That's like 20 steps to build one horse. That's far too much. But they look amazing, so I'll have to push through it. And there's only 10, but boy oh boy will I not be getting any more of them. Because I don't have the patience for building kits that intricate anymore. And that you can't really customize them whatsoever. But enough of me complaining. I'm very excited to build my Kingdoms of Men and my Xirkaali, and to finally have the East Asian forces I've always dreamed of. And if Wargames Atlantic can release their kit very soon, then I might not even have to buy the next Cathay one, and I can just go full on getting heaps of sprues of Wargames Atlantic stuff. I also have, which I'll be using as a Dogs of War unit, I don't have them around here easy found, but I can put up a picture, and it's from Eureka Miniatures. They're actually based here in Australia, in like a suburb I used to live in Hughesdale, and they have pretty much the only source of ancient Chinese miniatures in the world. Unfortunately, they're in metal, but they are nice. They're fine. You know, they look like metal miniatures from the mid-2000s, hand sculpted, but they do the job. They're based off the Qin Dynasty terracotta warriors, so they're historically accurate as much as looking at a terracotta warrior as a historically accurate thing can be, because we're never really sure if that's exactly what they look like. But they're nice. They're probably about the same size as the Yan warrior monks, so I'll be using them as Dogs of War, because they're all armed with spears. I got the Qin Heavy Guard, or Palace Guard. So yeah, that's my hobby ideas for this year. So what have you got planned? Has anyone got new armies planned for the new edition? Or are they going back to old armies and fixing them up or updating them as they need? I'd love to hear it, because yeah, it's just exciting time, because the new lists have come out, old lists have been rehashed, and we can look at them and come up with whole new ideas of ways to build armies, and things that weren't really feasible before are now very feasible and worth at least investigating. And well, for me, it's not so much feasibility, it's more just like, oh, I can build that army? Well, then I will. And not in terms of spam, just in terms of I have this model collection of models I like. 'Cause that's usually how I go. I have models I like, and then I make the army if it's possible. And so I figured out how to make a Kingdoms of Men army using models I like. I probably could have just started the whole video with that. But yeah, that's it for today. I'll come back with Riftforged Orcs and tell you how they're going, because they are going to look a bit different next time we see them on the battlefield. Until then, like and subscribe, comment, do all the stuff, I guess. Doesn't really matter to me. It's just nice to put out some videos. Boy, is it hot in this garage. Bye!